So the Boston Celtics season has come to an end with a 4-1 series loss to the Brooklyn Nets. We're here to break it down for you. This is the Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. Let's take a look at what happened in Game 5 because Kyrie Irving and James Harden were going in and going off. Final score, 123-109. Nets win it. They move on in the Eastern Conference playoffs to take on the Milwaukee Bucks in what will be a fantastic series. I talk about James Harden. We'll get into him further, but 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He drops a triple-double. Kyrie Irving was also really efficient as well. 25 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Kevin Durant. The efficiency and potency of this Nets team just flat out ridiculous. He goes in for 24 points on 4 of 6 shooting from deep. Jayson Tatum carrying and shouldering the load for the Boston Celtics, did everything he could with 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. He was fantastic. So too were Evan Fournier and Romeo Langford, but at the end of the day, the Celtics were just way too short-handed against a Nets team that is so deep, so talented, so efficient, and so proficient from the offensive end of the floor. Some of my Game 5 takeaways: Kemba Walker didn't play because of that nagging knee issue once again. He was also out of the lineup in Game 4. Robert Williams was also out, so the Celtics' front court presence took a hit without him because of that sprained ankle. Jayson Tatum is so tough because at multiple junctures in this game, he looked banged up. He looked like he was dealing with multiple injuries, but he just kept chugging forward, kept trying to carry this Celtics team that is so depleted and without Kemba Walker and Robert Williams was down 3 starters. His toughness, I think, rubbed off on the rest of the Celtics because this is a Celtics team that entered this game knowing we don't have the talent of the Brooklyn Nets. We don't have the firepower or the star power of Brooklyn either. How are we going to win this game? With a blue-collar mentality, playing tough, rugged defense, and for about 3 quarters, maybe even 3.5, the Celtics were somewhat on par with the star-studded Nets team, but the Nets able to pull away in the end because James Harden and Kyrie Irving were making it rain against a short-handed Celtics team. Grade the Celtics' effort in Game 5 for me. A, B, C, D, or F, and consider the fact they were down 3 starters. If you throw in that Jaylen Brown is out for the rest of the season with that wrist injury, get your votes in the comment section down below. What can you say about Jayson Tatum and the series that he had? I think he really matured and grew up in this playoff series, and it wasn't easy for him because so much pressure was on him, so much focus was on him as well, because he was really the only dangerous option offensively for the Celtics in this series. Still in Game 5, even though he was dealing with double teams and had to chuck it up 27 times, still able to contribute with 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Jayson Tatum this year grew up a lot, and I think it's only a matter of time before he becomes an MVP caliber player. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, the former Celtic, he was booed at TD Garden, a water bottle thrown at his head, didn't really affect him. 9 of 14 from the deck, 25 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. He was able to close this game out in the 4th quarter and put the nail in the coffin toward the Boston Celtics. James Harden, a walking triple-double at this point of his career. He was tremendous. He was fantastic. He was elite. He was unstoppable. 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and again, you go back to the efficiency from this big 3. It's really unlike anything we've ever seen because Harden, Kyrie, and Durant are 3 of the best bucket getters in the history of the NBA, especially in this generation, but 3 of the most efficient scorers that we have seen in recent NBA history. That's why this Nets team is so dangerous. When I look back at this series, I'm going to wonder, what type of impact would Jaylen Brown have had? You're talking about one of the best two-way wings across the entire NBA, a guy who can change the complexion of games both offensively and defensively. He's made leaps and bounds offensively throughout his young career since getting drafted out of Cal, and he's turned into a really efficient three-point and outside shooter and offensive creator. But it's really his work defensively that I would have liked to have seen in this series. Would he have guarded Kevin Durant? Could he have at least slowed him down a little bit? Could he have put the clamps on James Harden a little bit? And on some of those switches, could he have at least limited Kyrie Irving a little bit. Like, I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown would have completely changed this series to the point where the Celtics would have won it. I just think the Celtics would have been a little bit more competitive like they were in Game 1 and in Game 3 when Jayson Tatum went off for a 50-piece nugget. Looking into the offseason, it's going to be a crucial one. It's going to be a massive one for the Celtics because they massively underperformed this season. They were floated around 500. Not good enough for this franchise in this market with this rabid fan base. Do you want the Celtics to make big changes this upcoming offseason? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know how you're feeling about this team. Coming up in just a minute or two, we're going to give you a preview as to what might come and what changes might be made by the Celtics this upcoming offseason and what went wrong during the 2020-2021 NBA season, a season that was very frustrating and maddening for Celtics fans out there. So, hey, subscribe to Celtics Today because we're going to keep you updated with everything that this team does throughout NBA free agency as well as in the NBA draft. Hit that big red button down below that says subscribe or go to youtube.com/CelticsTV so you are able to stay up to date with every move that the Celtics make this offseason, brought to you and presented to you by Chat Sports. When you look back at the 2020-2021 NBA season and you look back at what the Celtics did or didn't do, to summarize this season, it was very frustrating, it was maddening, it was a season where the Celtics did not reach expectations after making it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It was everybody's hope that the Celtics were going to be able to compete for an NBA championship in 2021. But they finished the season 500, they didn't reach expectations, and it goes down as a very maddening and head-scratching year for this franchise. What went wrong for Boston this season? COVID issues to start. They were crushed by COVID protocols. Jayson Tatum, Tristan Thompson, Evan Fournier, just 3 guys who were out for extended periods of time because of COVID-related issues. The injury bug also smashed this team. They probably wish that they could have smashed the injury bug. There were countless injuries that really crushed this Celtics roster. The big one, losing Jaylen Brown for the rest of the regular and postseason just a couple of months ago with that wrist injury. If he played in this series against the Nets, I think it would have been a little bit more competitive. Am I saying that the Celtics would have won it? No, but Jaylen Brown has developed into one of the best two-way wings across the entire NBA. Because of the injuries and because of COVID issues, there was a lack of continuity within this Celtics roster, and they weren't able to close games late, and everything became very clunky. There was no camaraderie that you've seen with Celtics teams in the past, and that lack of gelling, so to speak, really showed with the Celtics down the stretch, but really the entire season, which is a big reason why they finished 500 and failed to reach those lofty expectations. Leading up to the NBA trade deadline, myself, Harrison Graham here at Chat Sports, we said, Danny Ainge, you got to go out and make a deal for a center. Please, this team is bereft of a really solid big man. Vucevic, Miles Turner, do something to upgrade the front court. Danny Ainge neglected that, and you saw that the Celtics had a vacant, gaping hole at the front court position. And the lack of Kemba Walker being an elite player hurt this team as well. The knee issues continue to linger. That's why he missed games 4 and 5. And looking ahead, his contract the next 2 seasons, not pretty at $36 and $37 million respectively. Not having the Kemba Walker that the Celtics made a move for really was disastrous for this team this year. What are the Celtics high on? What can they look forward to? Why should fans be excited? You have one of the best 1-2 punches across the entire league with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, a 1-2 punch at the wing spot that I think is capable of making a deep run in the playoffs, exactly like they did last year when they made it to the conference finals against the Heat. Jayson Tatum made a huge leap this year. He was outstanding, 27.5 points per game for this entire season, a little less than 8 rebounds. He shot nearly 49% from the floor, and Jayson Tatum continues to be a more efficient three-point shooter year after year. He was knocking down tray balls at a near 40% clip. He could compete for an MVP next year. Jaylen Brown, maybe he's not going to be at the MVP level of Jayson Tatum, but I'll tell you this, he's damn good, and he's a superstar in this league, especially as one of the most elite two-way guys that you'll see across the association. And his leap this year, like Tatum's, was very, very noticeable. Jaylen Brown's offensive game, leaps and bounds better than it was when he was at Cal, when he was looked at as a very raw prospect. And this year, he was really good. 24.5 points per game, 6 rebounds even. He shot an efficient 48.4% from the floor, and like Tatum, nearly 40% from distance. So Tatum and Brown, they have this franchise in a good spot. But it's a massive offseason because the Celtics have other positions and other needs on this roster that they really need to address. Some of my offseason questions for the Celtics, because they didn't reach expectations this year, are Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens going to be on the hot seat a year from now? If they don't perform up to par, I think that could be the case. Marcus Smart is one of the only valuable trade assets on this roster. You can't get rid of Kemba Walker, who we'll get to here in just a second, because of that contract that comes in at about $36 and $37 million the next 2 seasons. Could the Celtics part with Marcus Smart and try to get a more valuable piece back who's a better fit on this roster? That's an offseason question that we will be following here at Chat Sports. I already talked about it. Are they going to make a deal for a center? I think they need to. Could Miles Turner possibly be traded from the Pacers to the Celtics? I think that would be a huge upgrade, but there's no doubt I think the Celtics do need to get a better center at the 5 spot. And I talk about the Kemba dilemma. That contract is one of the worst contracts across the entire league. That knee injury that he suffered in the All-Star break 2 seasons ago has continued to bother him. And he's now missing way too much time and doesn't quite have the juice, the explosiveness, the spark that Kemba Walker once had in his prime. And I don't know if Danny Ainge is going to be able to move him. So those are my big offseason questions for the Celtics entering a massive, crucial, vitally important 2021 NBA offseason. So do you think Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens should be on the hot seat? Let me know in the comment section down below. Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. This has been a highly debated topic and argument discussion among Celtics fans. Get into the comments and get after it.